200-page report on the indictments they made last week of 37 people for planning to plot a military coup to prevent Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva from taking power in January 2023. Among those indicted, former President Jair Bolsonaro, Vice Presidential candidate Walter Braga Neto, a general who first became active during Brazil's brutal military dictatorship, which ended in 1985, General Augusto Heleno, who was implicated in an auto-coup attempt led by his boss, General Silvio Frota, in the late 1970s. Frota, Wagner Neto, and Augusto Heleno were all members of an internal group within the military of hardliners called the Tigradas, which never conformed to the return of civilian rule. Now, according to the report, the evidence, which is based on testimonies of plea bargains, recorded conversations, documental evidence, and also conversations in chat groups between the different plotters, shows that there were 6 cells created to help move forwards the plans of the coup. One of them started in 2021 and used social media to try and undermine the population's confidence in the electoral system. Another one was tasked with covert activities. Among these covert activities were the planned assassinations of Lula, Alckmin, and Moraes. Now, it's interesting to note that the meetings where the planning took place for these assassinations took place in the house of General Walter Braga Neto. So for now, as the population processes all of this information, the Attorney General has the responsibility of opening formal charges. The sources I have in Brasilia tell me that this is probably going to happen after the Christmas holiday in the beginning of 2025.
The Mexican government warned Wednesday that the U.S. economy will be negatively impacted by if President-elect Donald Trump follows through on his threat to implement his tariff policy. This way, the Mexican Secretary of Economy, Marcelo Ebrard, alerted that close to 400,000 jobs would be lost in the United States if tariffs against the country are increased, since the measure would significantly affect the 3 largest U.S. automotive companies in Mexico. Furthermore, Ebrard explained the action would be equivalent to doubling the tax on profits of U.S. companies, so consumers would have to pay for more expensive products, thus reducing the nation's economic growth. In this regard, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum stressed her government is working on an immediate response to the measure.
What we are doing with the letter, with the work that Marcelo, the Secretary of Economy, is doing, and that everyone is helping us with, is to put on the table the impacts that tariffs would have for the 3 countries that are trading partners. And as Marcelo explained, it would not only have an impact on Mexico, but also on the United States. It would have a great impact. Not only for the companies, but also for the consumer, for those who purchase a vehicle, which will have an immediate price increase. So we are putting on the table the impacts that would have.
Also in this context, the Mexican head of state, Claudia Sheinbaum, said that she will always defend Mexican migrants, assuring they contribute greatly to the United States economy.
We are now talking about the issue of tariffs. But we are also going to talk in this morning conference and in other spaces about what it would mean if there were deportations. How do Mexicans contribute to the United States? From the farmers who work the land, who are outstanding, to the scientist who works somewhere else. Because all of our fellow citizens on the other side of the border contribute to the economy of the United States. And we are going to defend and vindicate all of them, because we Mexicans are outstanding workers, as I said. So, this idea that they are criminals is false. They are hardworking men, women like no other.
Displaced Lebanese are returning to their country from Syria after the announcement of the ceasefire deal struck on Tuesday between the Israeli occupation and the Hezbollah resistance group. From one of the Damascus-Beirut border crossings, our correspondent Hisham Iwanos gives us more details on the matter.
Hola, colega, saludos amables televidentes. Efectivamente, a las 4 de la madrugada, hora local de Beirut.
Indeed, at 4 a.m. local time in Beirut, the ceasefire agreement between the Israeli occupation and the Lebanese resistance Hezbollah by means of the United States came into force. This pact, which entails a 60-day ceasefire according to the Lebanese authorities, stipulates the withdrawal of the troops of the Israeli occupation from the attacked areas and also to stop the Israeli aggression against the south and east of Lebanon, the southern suburb of Beirut and the capital of Beirut, as well as the deployment of the Lebanese army in the dividing line in the south of Lebanon, along with the forces of the preservation of peace, the provisional forces of the United Nations, the Blue Helmets, in this blue dividing line between the south of Lebanon and the north of occupied Palestine. It should also be noted that the return of the displaced Lebanese to their homes in the attacked areas began today, especially the Lebanese who were refugees within the Lebanese territory, who immediately began to return to the south and east of Lebanon, and also to the neighboring villages and cities very close to the borderline with occupied Palestine, despite the warnings of the Israeli occupation. Likewise, the displaced people who are in Syria began to return to their country. We are currently at the Jadidat Yabus border crossing in countryside Damascus, which joins Damascus and Beirut. The displaced people began to return, but so far there is not much movement because the road that joins Damascus and Beirut in Lebanon is destroyed due to the Israeli attacks. Syrian authorities immediately began the repair of this road today to allow the return of the Lebanese who have been welcomed in Syrian territory. The Lebanese celebrated this agreement, claiming that it is a victory due to the resistance and the firmness of the resistance fighters, the firmness of the Lebanese people, and affirming that the Israeli occupation has not achieved any of its objectives through this aggression against Lebanon. They have not been able to eradicate the Lebanese resistance, and they have not been able to allow the safe return of the Israeli settlers to the colonies and settlements in the north of occupied Palestine. It is also a matter that has been criticized by the Israeli opposition and by the Israeli settlers who rejected this agreement and affirmed that it really constitutes a surrender and a pact of surrender by the Israeli occupation against the Lebanese resistance. The Lebanese, like this whole axis of the resistance, affirmed that today is a historic day, a great victory, and they have managed to defeat the Israeli occupation and are willing to rebuild everything that has been destroyed. The Lebanese affirm that they will continue the path of struggle, the path of resistance, and that of the great resistance leaders who sacrificed their lives in defense of Lebanon and also in support of the Palestinian resistance, Hamas, and the Palestinian people of the Gaza Strip. This war against Lebanon, which has lasted for more than a year, from October 2023 until now, and which has intensified during the last 66 days since last September, has caused the death of more than 3,823 Lebanese, most of them civilians, and injured more than 16,000, causing also great destruction. But Lebanon has achieved a victory and is currently pressuring the Lebanese to support them at an international level in the recovery and reconstruction of the destroyed areas, and also to pressure Israel to respect this 60-day ceasefire, which could be extended, although the Israeli occupation affirmed that it maintains freedom of movement and action, assuring that it would attack at any time and that the Lebanese resistance intends to continue attacking in support of the resistance in Palestine and the Palestinian people. This is all the information we have for now.
Pretende seguir atacando en apoyo a la resistencia en Palestina y al pueblo palestino. Esta es toda la información que tenemos por ahora. Adelante, por favor.
Venezuela hosts the International Anti-Fascist Meeting for a New World. The two-day event is held on November 27th and 28th at the Bolivar Park Convention Center in Miranda State. The meeting will be attended by delegates from different countries who will discuss strategies to give answers and assign tasks to prevent fascism from imposing itself in the sovereign peoples of the world. The meeting will also consolidate the ideas that emerged during the Anti-Fascist Youth Congress that took place on November 22nd and 23rd in the capital city of Caracas. These events consolidate Venezuela as the capital of the struggle against fascism and as a space to unify people's voices that were and are victims of fascism.
El fascismo sí fue casi derrotado, diría yo.
Fascism was almost defeated. Fascism muted in 1945. It blended with the oligarchies and the bourgeoisie of the time, and slept for a while to re-emerge today with greater force to continue its domination over the peoples, because they are the same today. If we look at who are promoting fascism today, who are supporting fascism today, they're the same who encouraged it 80, 85 years ago. They are just the same. That hasn't changed a bit.
The top Venezuelan diplomat stated that fascism was but a tool of capitalism to keep exploiting the working class.
El fascismo no es más que una derivación, es más como un elemento.
Fascism is nothing more than a byproduct, a tool used by imperialism and capitalism to keep dominating and exploiting the working class. So the anti-fascist struggle is also an anti-capitalist struggle, a struggle for the construction of socialism, which is the only way we know, as Comrade Rander said, to eliminate both capitalism and its most violent expressions, its most horrifying expression, which is fascism.
Let's go to the Caribbean, namely the Dominican Republic, where a Pandora box has been opened by the theft of ammunition within the domestic police forces. Let's see the coverage of our correspondent Daisy Toussaint.
In the Dominican Republic, a hearing was held in the Pandora case, which is related to a network corruption within the police, where over 900,000 ammunition projectiles had been allegedly stolen from the National Police warehouses, exposing a web of internal corruption.
Let's make crystal clear that on this legal process, excluding civilian Miguelina Bello, the rest of defendants betrayed their uniform, betrayed their institution and betrayed their country. Fortunately, some of them have held their accountability in court, as they have decided to collaborate with the Public Prosecutor's Office. Particularly, 3 defendants have so far collaborated with the Public Prosecutor's Office.
In the Pandora case, 10 people have been charged, 9 of them police officers and a civilian. The Public Prosecutor's Office unfolded that this criminal network used to steal ammunition. Right afterwards, they allocated that ammunition to 80 through border markets. The detained police officers were responsible for the custody of arms and ammunition, so they managed the arms depot, so they altered all this to cover up the projectiles theft. Thus, in 1 year, they have embezzled over 64 million pesos, equal to over $1 million from the state.
Today, we exposed our arguments abided by law, proving the untruth of what was stated by the Public Prosecutor's Office. We are taking a recess now. To continue with the hearing tomorrow at 2 p.m. we are convinced that the Chief Justice will be sovereign, independent, so that the authorities' ruling will be grounded in the principles and legal precepts.
The case was described as complex, but the Chief Justice issued a verdict. 7 of the 10 defendants were remanded in custody, while the other 3 offenders received economic guarantees, in addition to reporting daily to the supervisor. Meanwhile, Miguelina Bello, the civilian involved, was given house arrest.
You must understand that the Public Prosecutor's Office is charging the majority of defendants with association of wrongdoers, which is globally known as criminal association. The entity accuses them of arms trafficking and an array of other allegations due to some weapons of the national police have gone missing.
The Pandora case brought to light both the vulnerability of the country's security entities and the urgent need for reforms within the national police. Notwithstanding, defense attorneys will always seek to find their clients not guilty.
The inspectorate issued a piece of evidence that determines that our defendant is discharged from any kind of responsibility, grounded in he didn't have the key to the warehouse, where the ammunition was kept. In addition, several defendants, namely 3 of them, excluding Miguelina, they will make agreements with the Public Prosecutor's Office, so they will hold their criminal responsibility. But our client won't make any agreement because our defendant has no responsibility. Thus he won't admit a crime he did not commit.
Dominican people have spotlighted this trial for both the magnitude of the theft and the fragility of the institutions in charge of public security.
Para teleSUR, Daisy Tucen, República Dominicana.
On Tuesday night, Brazil's federal police public with the evidence it is using for its indictments of former President Bolsonaro and his cronies for plotting to enact a military coup in 2022. Our correspondent Brian Muir has more.
Last night in Brazil,